Welcome to Powering the Future, the monthly vodcast brought to you by the Ministry of Mines and Energy. In each episode, we dive into the heart of Namibia's natural resource potential, exploring the opportunities in mining, petroleum, and renewable energy that are shaping the nation's future. And today, we are unlocking Namibia's rich natural wealth, looking at how our resources are driving growth, innovation, and investment opportunities, both locally and internationally. We are excited to have you with us as we uncover the stories behind Namibia's resource sectors. And stay with us for an insightful discussion. I think it's probably an understatement to say Namibia as a country, it's really well endowed with natural resources. You can think of our natural resources such as minerals. You can think of things like resources like energy resources like wind and solar. And those are all the resources that can propel Namibia into a very, very highly complex economy. For example, when it comes to the mining, there was a time even when the mining sector accounted for more than 15% of our GDP, for example. Today we know 50% of our exports all come from the mining sector. And that is quite a huge, the whole economy, and therefore it's not really an overstatement to say we are endowed with all these resources. But I think the question that we still need to ask ourselves, and what also the Namibian people are asking, with all these endowments that we have got, what does it really mean for the country? What does it really mean for the ordinary Namibian? What does it do to the ordinary Namibians? And I think what we're trying to talk about here is to really actually explain to the people to say, yes, that's what we have. That is what it's doing for us right now. And that is what it actually could do for us. All the questions I get these days just to say, if I'm just an ordinary Namibian in a village somewhere else, and when you tell me that we are one of the biggest diamond producer in the country, or we are one of the biggest uranium producer, being fourth in the world, for example. But me as an individual Namibians, what does it really mean for me? And I think these are the stories that we normally do not tell. And then we then decided to say, as a ministry, we need to really start to share this information, to say, yes, this is what we have got. That is what it means for us. And that is how all of us can participate to make sure that it can really be beneficial to both of us. And one of the discussion, I think, which we are not probably really having enough, is that it's one thing to have resources as a country. But let's not forget that, if our human resources itself are not also on par with the natural resources, the benefits that we are likely to derive from these natural resources will really be suboptimal. And therefore, in our conversations, we also always need to bring in this element of, are our human resources up to the challenge to make sure that these resources are actually utilized and becoming beneficial to all of us. And I will be quite happy to hear some of the views. For example, Gabi, you are someone who actually work in the industry. You're familiar with what is going on. Just to have some of your understanding, your take as to what really is at play and how can we make it better. And Mali, as an economist, I know economists always talk about with one hand and on the other hand, but I hope that today maybe we can have both hands. But it's really also interesting just to have your take as an economist where you see us going with what we have got now is in our natural resources, and really focusing on mining sector and the energy sectors, just to have this conversation so that at least people can understand what we have in the country.
Minister, if I may, and I must warn you, geologists also say on the one hand and on the other hand side.
Yes. Yeah. But let's have both hands today.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll try my best.
Yeah.
I think it's very clear mining has been the backbone of the Namibian economy for more than 100 years. But I also agree that it's probably not always that visible. I mean, we're producing the best quality gem diamonds in the world. We're the third largest producer of uranium in the world. We do copper, lead, zinc, and then, of course, more recently associated with the tin mining activities, we are now concentrating on battery metals such as lithium. There's a lot of potential. I think the mining industry over the years has contributed tremendously in terms of royalties, tax payments, and one aspect that is often not mentioned is local procurement and the supplier industry. The Chamber of Mines has done a study a couple of years ago where they found that for every job generated in the mining industry, you will have 7 jobs in the supplier industry. So this is an enormous job creation, but again also revenue creation for government because taxes are paid here. So I think we must not underestimate. I agree, if I am somewhere in a remote village and I don't have a mine close by, I probably don't see the direct benefits. But as I said, the contributions to tax payments, royalty payments, local procurement, and last not least, corporate social responsibility projects that are often taking place far away from the actual mining operation. And I can only mention the Racing Foundation as one example, with activities all over the country while the mine is in the Erongo region. I think these are really contributions that are indirectly felt by each and every citizen. You mentioned also manpower. We have some excellent institutions. We have a wonderful mining engineering department at NUST. We have a geology department at UNAM, and we have for artisan training NIMT, the Namibian Institute for Mining and Technology. But I agree, if we want to keep pace with the growth, and now especially also with oil and gas adding to the portfolio in the not too distant future, most probably. And also we're talking about utilizing nuclear energy. We need to do more in that respect. Mm-hmm. But I think we have the institutions that can live up to the expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Gabi, you're quite right, and Tom, you're quite right. I think these are some of the stories that really need to be told. And for me personally, I think the stories are not being told enough. When I look at the mining sector, for example, from where I'm sitting, I see the mining sector as a boiling pot of opportunities. Without getting more scientific into how it is set up, for me, really, by looking at mining, I'm seeing a job creation factory, machine. You spoke about manpower. Currently, we are talking about 18,000 employed directly in the mining sector. 8,000 of that permanent, plus temporal jobs. When you talk of contractors or subcontractors, that's another 8,000 together. But that is besides the lives that are impacted by those people. So if I'm coming from Onanjokwe, where there is no single mine, I can ask to say, but I don't see how I'm benefiting directly from the mining sector. There's no mine here. But the schools that are being built in Onanjokwe, the hospitals, the road, where is that money coming from? From the contribution that the mining sector, of which is one of the biggest. And so these kind of linkages, once packaged, people will really begin to see that indeed the mining sector has been, is, and will be the driver of this economy. And for me, really, the mining sector, it is a sector, but also an enabler. When we talk of the fourth industrial revolution, we talk of cutting edge technology. Where will technology come through? Through the mining. Because the skills transfer, the technology transfer that has to come as the investment, as the industry is growing, is massive. I like the point you said about the academia. I mean, we just recently saw the Namibia University of Science and Technology opening a satellite campus in Ludres. Who would have thought? Had it not been for the mining sector's expansion, we are talking about a cutting-edge technology hub in Ludres. Can you imagine the immense, spin-off from there? So really, I think there is a lot that we can talk about. And the good thing that I'm happy about is that we have really preserved the sector and we have put it in a position for the future. We're speaking of the future generation, and I like the fact that the ministry, the industry have been very, very supportive in terms of building capacity. And I think that's something really we need to put more emphasis on, because skills develop and evolve on a second. So I like the fact that in as much as we see the direct GDP benefit, there's also that need to equip the skills and human capacity in that sector.
Yeah, but if you were just follow that argument that mining is really a backbone of the economy, and we want to make sure that continues to be the case. Obviously, not to only rely on the mining sector. Let's not forget about the other sector of the economy. But let's then, for argument's sake, that is really the backbone of the sectors. Then we also had to start to think about how sustainable is this? How do we make sure that we are doing this in a sustainable manner? And that makes me to also then think about, it always said that mining is a complex sector. It's not really as easy as sometimes we think it is. And for us to be able then to sustain that employment opportunities, to sustain that revenue that we get, we also need to start to think about who do we allow in this sector? Because if you then allow somebody to come into the sectors who will not be able then to do what needs to be done in order for us to sustain that sector, then you may find that it may not be sustainable. And therefore, we are also starting to look at what sort of investors do you want to come into the sector? And you want to make sure that you really have got investors who also have got the same understanding to say, we want to manage this sector in such a way that's benefiting the populations. We are talking about issues like environmental issues, we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about governance issues, so that the person in Anjopa you mentioned start to really feel that, yes, I'm getting this, because the stakeholders in the sector, not only the policymakers but even the investors themselves, are on the same wavelength to make sure that they are mining in such a way that it's really going to be felt with the communities. Are they really earning their license to operate? Are they really immersing themselves into the community where they are operating? Are they taking care of the environment? And therefore, that part, we need to continue to do that. Otherwise, if we don't do that, that sustainability may not really be there, because then suddenly everybody does whatever it is, and just to make the money out of it, but not really with the understanding to say, no, we need to do this sustainably. And that also tie into the point that Gabi, you mentioned, to say what it can mean to the livelihood of the communities. The idea of not only benefiting from the revenue that we get from the sector by selling the minerals that we have got, but also to make sure that all the other industries that can be part of this or can supply the mining sectors. You mentioned about the procurement issues. I know that we, together with the industry, we have now established a database that record all the inputs that are required in the mining sectors. We make it public, and that idea was to encourage local entrepreneurs to understand and know what is required by the mining sector, and also to start prepare themselves to say, look, if this much acid is needed by the mining sector and we don't have an acid plant in Namibia, for example, surely there's an opportunity for us to invest in the acid plant or whatever it is. And I think that way the mining sector can start also to be a catalyst for other subsectors that might not have existed if it wasn't for the mining sector. So that sustainability issue is also something that I think, we need to start to really think about it, and who are the players in these industries.
Yeah, I think, and I need to use my two hands again because there were two main aspects in what you just said. The one thing is both related to sustainability, of course. The one thing is how do we steer the pot in the right direction so that mining is sustainable? And I think the Ministry of Mines and Energy has an enormous role to play there, because it's in your hands to make investing in mining attractive. And when we talk about sustainability in mining, obviously every ore body is finite. So we have to look at sustainability from a different angle, which basically means when you are mining, you also have to do exploration to find those resources that you will mine in future and thereby remain a job provider and so on and so forth. So there must be a conducive environment that people also invest part of their earnings into new exploration. And just to give another example, at the last COP conference, 25 countries agreed that they want to triple nuclear energy output by 2050. Now the uranium that they need for that still needs to be found. We have a lot of uranium, but we're also using it, or unfortunately not in the country, but we're selling it to other people who are using it. And that is probably also an avenue to exploit. Then the other issue with sustainability is obviously more the international framework, and I think that actually plays into our hands. ESG is the great catchword, and if you are mining a product, whatever it is, whether it's uranium or copper or diamonds, your customers want to know that you follow ESG principles. Good governance must be in place. There cannot be any damage to the environment. Communities must benefit. And you are actually checked out these days on that. So that plays into our hands.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mali, any take on?
Yes, no, definitely. I think you cannot speak of mining without touching on sustainability. And when you speak of sustainability, you look at where you are. And currently, in the mining sector, where we are in an environment which is ripe for great opportunities. We have what it takes to move this sector to the next level. I mean, we are really among the best countries that have got very good laws and policies. And thanks to the leadership, the current leadership, the previous leadership, who have cast a vision in terms of creating policy space for enabling the sector to become the best. We're not very bad in terms of infrastructure. We are talking about energy requirements. We talk about construction. There is, of course, room for improvement. And we have a fair amount of skills in country. All of these things are very good ingredient to propel the mining sector to the next level. What are we saying? We are talking about, we want to see a mining sector that is able to sustain us today and tomorrow. How can we do that? There are many ways, but one of them is to elongate the value chain. Minister, you spoke about all these new things. That is really the value chain. Mm-hmm. We traditionally have been very heavy on the lower end of the value chain. We mine our uranium, we send it to wherever we send it, of course with a little bit of cleaning up here and there, but that is still in raw form. By elongating the value chain, we do a lot of work extensively before we mine it. And for every polished diamond that you polish here in Namibia, that's massive jobs that you create in Namibia. But if we let the other country do the polishing, we are basically exporting the jobs. So if we want to sustain these jobs and the incomes for the government, we need to elongate the value chain. We have all that it takes. And the good thing is, with technology nowadays, we can do all of these things really in a much quicker space. And the good thing about it is that Namibia once again finds itself at a cutting edge with the recent discovery of rare earth mineral, critical mineral. We're speaking of lithium, the battery. Already one can see that the motor industry is moving towards electric vehicle. Of course, we may not want to have a car factory in Namibia, but the car producer will have to come to Namibia for the batteries. We must lure them. Let's have a battery industry so that those people can come. And then eventually we build our own capacity, we start producing the cars. You spoke of nuclear. There are so many. So if we need to sustain this sector, to create the jobs, to continue sustaining the government, to continue bringing all these good things, let's think ahead of the game. And we already have what it takes to do that.
Yeah. I think both what you just said, it's, if you were to sustain it, then we have to follow the value chain.
Yes.
And I think that's where I think we all agree that the time when we're simply, the producer of raw minerals and other people buys, and then they use it for, to make goods and things to sell. And we are really just at the lower end of the value chain. That time is past.
Yes.
And we really need to insist that, there's value addition to some of these minerals. And that is why I think not long ago, the government took a decision to say, for example, we are no longer going to allow the exportation of unprocessed rare earth minerals or critical minerals like lithium or copper, but there must be some value additions. And that way, you are going to capture some of the jobs that can be created within the local economy. It might mean that we need also to accelerate the provision of some of the infrastructure, because now suddenly you need more electricity, you need more energy to do all this manufacturing. And as a result of that decision to say we are no longer going to allow the exportations of raw critical minerals, we now, as we speak, have two processing plants that have been built in the last 8 months, where lithium is no longer being exported unprocessed. It's actually concentrated, and from here on, not just look at the concentrated, but we should actually try and follow that value chain to say, should we go to all the way up to vertical integration? But there's somewhere where we need to start, and we have started to do that. That way, we are going to be able to sustain the sector. And for me, really, if there was any time where, as Namibians, we should be excited about the economic prospect, I think it's today, because there are just a number of things that are happening. Of course, there's still loose end that we must tie up, but certainly, I think especially in the space of natural resources and energy, there's really something we should all be positive about. And that, for example, we talk about the uranium that we produce. You might have listened to the Vice President Netumbo Naitwa in her messaging recently to say, look, if we have got all this uranium, why should we not think about having nuclear energy as a source, as part of our mix? And that's really something seriously we are looking at it, because it doesn't really help to say we have got all this, but you cannot actually use to be more beneficial to what we are doing. And therefore, in the energy sector, a lot of things are also happening. Obviously, now, for example, the oil and gas discovery is another start, a nascent sector that we're starting. And those are all things to start to think about it. But what we really need to put emphasis on to say, look, what does it mean to the ordinary Namibian? How does that affect me, my life? And therefore, in terms of the policy making, especially now in new industry like oil and gas, it's very, very important to make sure that the Namibian people are in the center of this. And you must have heard about how we've been talking about local content within the oil and gas sectors, just like as we try to do that in the mining sector. And therefore, local content, not only in terms of employing Namibians, but in terms of having Namibian entrepreneurs to be part of these sectors, even if it means that the Namibian entrepreneurs must prepare themselves to be able then to be part of that. Because without that preparation also, as I was saying, the human capital part of this equation is something that we should continue to really put in the center to make sure that we take advantage of these things.
Yeah, Minister, I couldn't agree more. And I think the steps that were taken with reference to critical minerals are obviously steps in the right direction. When it comes to uranium, it's a bit more complex. Uranium is a special commodity. And obviously you have the whole nuclear fuel cycle. And where our uranium oxide, which we export, goes to converters and enrichers and fuel fabricators. But again here, I think we must think a little bit out of the box. Perhaps it is not economic, and also because for regulatory reasons, not an easy thing to say we now start enriching uranium. But we can have that done elsewhere and then re-import the fuel and utilize it. And that way we could generate more electricity that would attract more manufacturers. It would also ease the pressure that is on some new mining companies, because obviously for mining you also have to secure your electricity. And that would then again directly touch the lives of the Namibian people.
Yeah. No, I like the point that you've made just now, that with proper and much more better planning, I think most of these things will fall into place. I want to go back to what the minister spoke about what does it really mean to the man on the street. And it's very, very important, because this is where it all boils down to. If you look at the mining sector, last year, the turnover, we are speaking of more than 50 billion. That's a turnover from the industry. 21 billion of that went directly into local procurement. Massive, that's direct injection. And that local procurement sustains local jobs, sustain local industries. Not to mention about 6 billion, more than 6 billion that went to government through pay as you earn, as tax. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this that the environment is ripe. We just need to channel all of this energy into where we want it to be. What do I mean? We are busy now, Minister, with finalizing NDP 6. What is NDP 6 saying on how it's going to utilize the resources that we are getting from mining? How many roads, how many schools, how many this and this and this that we want to build with support from this money? So it is about paralleling the sector and the national plan. Because without the income, without the revenue from mining sector, the NDP 6 might not really be effective. So as we develop the national plan to better our people, let's see and align it with where the mining sector is going. And I'm talking about massive opportunities in skills development. With the recent discovery, Minister, of green hydrogen, there's more need for us to realign our curriculum. We didn't have green hydrogen engineer. I don't even know what they are called, but we didn't have green hydrogen experts. Now it's time to say, okay, in NDP 6, how much have we budgeted to send young people to Germany, wherever, to study these things? We are planning, looking at how much we can leverage the mining sector. And that, at the end of the day, Gabi, will really translate into betterment of our people. And the biggest thing I'm excited about is we know our industry better. Gabi, you've been involved in creating and producing database. We know where each and every mineral lies, and we know where we can direct our resources to say, okay, let's do this here. That's why I spoke about the leadership. You have invested so much in information. The world is moving towards information economy. Honorable Minister, we know where these things are, and we can use that to apply them into our planning, such that our national development agenda speak to where our strength lies.
Yeah, Mali, I think that's a very important point, and I think that needs also to be stressed, because that's something that sets Namibia apart. The Ministry's Geological Survey has incredible databases, both in terms of information from more than 100 years of exploration in Namibia, excellent high-resolution airborne geophysical data, Not many countries in this world have the kind of data sets that Namibia has. And that assists us. Unfortunately, not all mineral deposits have been found yet. I hope that many more will be found. But we have these tools to use. And that is really a great benefit from the ministry.
Yeah, I think on that point, as you say, everything is these days point about data and how you use that data, the technology you apply on that data, and if you got that, you are in a better position actually to direct how things should move. But for me, that's probably something that still we need to, because, as you say, if we know at least preliminary where the resources are, then it's much easier also for you then to license the explorations in the area where potentially this is much more than the other area which is not less potential, as opposed to then everybody trying to do exploration all over in such a way that it may not really deal with the environmental issues in a more sustainable manner. And therefore, I agree with you to say we just need to continuously upgrade and improve our geological data to be in a better position to locate where these minerals are, and therefore that's where we're going to exploring. And I think that way, we can also then have a better discussion with the investors, and also have a better position of demanding certain things from the investor, because we have done some of the work ourselves where these minerals are. That is very important. I think in the end, really, what we're discussing is simply to say, yes, Namibia is endowed with these mineral resources, with these energy resources. If it's going to work for us, or if it's going to create livelihood for Namibians, number one, it hinges on the kind of policies that we put in place, such that those policies are people-centric, how the people benefit from that. It hinges on also the kind of investors that we are going to be attract. Obviously, we want to be an environment where it attract the investors, but we also don't want just to attract any investors. We really want to have investors that are like-minded, that are able then to fulfill our objective as a country, and those are the investors we want to have, not just any investor. It also then thirdly requires that we as Namibians, if we want to be part of this, not just as beneficiaries, but we really want to be role players in this, it also means that there are certain things that we need to do, and that actually means that equipping ourselves with the knowledge that is needed, especially entrepreneurs. If we do not do that, we are likely then to see, we know now, investors only coming from outside, but we don't really have Namibian entrepreneurs that are playing an active role in some of these sectors. And I know sometimes it's because we say there's no money, but I think the biggest part also that, let's just understand what it is. Money is, for me, normally is a secondary issue, but if you really have a knowledge, if you understand it, you are in a better position also then to raise funds to be able to do this. And therefore, it's a conversation I think we should continue to have, but those three things, the policy issues, the kind of investors you want, and our own preparedness will really, very, very be key for us to be able to sustainable the sectors that are so important for our economy.
I just want to really concur and tie in with what ministers have said. We have a great potential here, a great opportunity here. There are certain things that we need to know, that we need to do, so that we set ourselves in the right course. Number one, with all the massive information and database that we have collected, about 100 years of geological data, it's massive. With all the good policies that we have, we are in a better position, but we need to work on how we work as a government. We need to break the silo mentality. If Ministry of Mines and Energy go to the expos, global expos, and invite investors to come, when an investor comes, he shouldn't have a problem accessing buildings where he's supposed to have meetings. and I'm talking about immigration. Let's bring them on board. Let's bring the Minister of Agriculture and Water. If they want to set up a mine somewhere and there's no water, it's really not the work of Mines and Energy to run around. Minister of Agriculture and Water must come on board. We need investors that have to come and support local entrepreneurs. Who is supposed to develop local entrepreneurs? It's not the Minister of Mines, it's the Minister of Trade. How much are we work together really makes a difference. And for me, and it's really not only in the mining sector, it's the whole sectors, there is still these silo working mentalities. We need to work as a government together so that what the Minister of Mines is talking about, Minister of Labor knows about. Green hydrogen, oil discoveries, we did not really have enough skills. For the time being, we will need to rely on expatriates. How accessible are our labor market by those expatriates? So Minister of Immigration has to come in, Minister of Labor must come in to say, okay, this is a special sector, how do we make this environment conducive? Eventually that skills transfer and all those things will fall into place. So for me, really, I think the stage is set. We just need to iron out those few bottlenecks. We can do it.
Yeah, and I think in addition, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism is a key ministry. Exploration and mining activities need environmental clearance. And there needs to be a good cooperation between MME and MEFT.
Even the local authority. Even the local
of
authority.
course.
The chief says, look.
Yeah.
At least the
Heritage
chief
Council.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we wrap up this discussion by simply saying we are really, I think, as a country at the cusp of good things happening. We just need to continuously improve our knowledge of what it is need to be done. How can we take part in this? And I really invite all Namibians, especially the young people, to really be part of this discussion, to take interest in what's going on, and not only take interest, but also then to figure out, if I want to be entrepreneurs in this sector, what is that, what I need to do in terms of knowledge and what I need to equip myself with, to make sure then I'll play that role. And I think that way, then I think we are all going to see that these are sectors that are becoming more useful to us. They improve our lives, but only if we really take part in this. On our side as a ministry, we commit to make sure that the information that are available are really shared with everybody, because only when people have the information that are required, only then they can really equip themselves to be role players in this, and therefore that's a commitment we're making to really, on a continuous basis, to share the necessary information with the public. And I invite all the members of the public to follow this discussion. So we end here for today. And Gabby, Mali, I both thank you. We will continue this conversation. So thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.